Hello, so glad you're with us. This is part 2 on various things that affect our behavior and our interactions with others and our interactions with our children. So we're going to look at some of Dr. Caroline Leaf's messages in her various books and in her newest book, How to Help Children in Their Mental Mess. And then also I'm going to give you a book, show you a book. I'm actually going to read a book to you on how to manage our thinking, how to turn it around. And I'll have 4 easy questions and a book that you can read with your children to help you teach them how to think and how important our thinking is. So as we continue to talk about how to teach our children to think healthy, to live a productive life, I think it's important. I talk a lot. I think I talked a lot on the last podcast about Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's a neuroscientist. I absolutely love her teaching. She's very well equipped to talk about behavior, talk about mental and emotional health. She worked with children. She's from South Africa, and she worked with children that came from, very traumatic childhoods, being forced to serve in armies as children. We're talking children of having to shoot people, having to shoot their own family members. Most of us can't even comprehend that. And yet she was able to take these children and other traumatic brain injuries, apply her knowledge of the brain as a neuroscientist, and watch it perform really miracles in the brain. It's called neuroplasticity, that our brain can change. I think there's been old schools of thought that said you can't change your brain. It's just how it is. But she disagrees with that, and I firmly agree with her. She's written several books. I've read many, and I don't just read books, I study them. And I think that is the key. If you're a reader, well, I'll say a couple things. If you're not a reader, become a reader. I know you hate that, don't you? But there's so much information out there. Why reinvent the wheel? Why do you have to create the same problems or go through the same problems as others when I can simply read how that didn't work for you? Didn't work for the other 90% of people. It's probably not going to work for me. That's been my outlook, because I would rather read and learn how, that didn't work for you, probably not going to work for me, as far as negative. And what did work for you? What worked for you? If I apply your principles, it possibly can work for me. But here's my revelation, an epiphany that probably should have been an epiphany a long time ago, was I can have all this knowledge and I can study all these books. But if I don't apply this knowledge to my life, it will not change the outcome. So if I want to change my behavior, many times in life we focus on behavior. Stop overeating, stop undereating, stop ticking people off, stop trying to control everybody and everything in life. We're looking at behavior. You can change behavior for a little while by just being my will. I am just willfully going to do this. But to truly sustain a behavioral change, you have to go back and look at what's the thinking patterns that were created in my life that lead to the messages that I tell myself, that create my emotions, and then lead to that behavior. I don't overeat necessarily because I love food. I may overeat because it's a comfort. It's a comfort. Or I may overeat because I don't think men accept me, and so I'm going to reject them before they reject me, and by overeating, I'm making myself what I think unacceptable to men. And so do you see how complex behavior is? So that's why we have to study it and read and make yourself. When I started having panic attacks in my early 20s, I was a hairstylist and I didn't really know what was going on. I just got to where I would start shaking and for me, it was men. I grew up with a very domineering father. I adore him. I love my parents. There again, I evaluate my childhood as it was. Very unhealthy parents. My mother was an alcoholic. My father, he worked hard. He wanted to provide for his family, but he didn't know how to emotionally connect with us. He didn't know how to enjoy us as kids. He was so intense. I walked on eggshells. And mother, because she didn't know how to handle his personality either, and she was not healthy emotionally, she didn't know how to communicate her emotions and her thoughts in a relationship. So they created a lot of turmoil, a lot of anxiety in the home, a lot of insecurity. I never knew, was I coming home to my mother, who is my biggest cheerleader in life and loves me and celebrates me, or am I coming home to a mother who's passed out on the couch from alcohol? So that creates insecurities in me, correct? It creates all kind of emotions. Could I have been, if I'd only been better enough, if I'd only been a better child, if I'd only been, I wonder if I said something that made her drink today. I wonder, because she was fine before I left for school, but now I come home and she's drunk. What did I say? What did I do? You can see how that creates insecurity in a child. But Caroline Leaf, she states in her book, which I highly recommend, How to Help the Child Clean Up Their Mental Mess, which I love she calls it mental mess, right? Guys, let's lighten up on this mental and emotional health. Yes, it's very serious. Yes, but we know we're all a little messy. This is what she says. Our mind directs who we are. What a thought, huh? Pause. What a thought. Our mind directs who we are. How we think, how we feel, and how we choose. That's who we are. The mind regulates everything to do with aliveness. How we wake up in the morning, how we show up throughout the day, how we interact with our family, friends, teachers, and environment. I teach this to the young people when they come in for their well checkups, and I do talk about mental and emotional health and what that means in everyday life, how that plays out in their relationships, their work environments, school, how a teacher interacts with them is very important, and it has to do with how they're interacting with their teacher. And she says, in addition to how we manage the good and bad things that happen to us, our mind determines, listen to this, this is interesting, this is the science behind our mind and behavior, is our mind determines how our body makes cells, impacting our biological health and how we absorb nutrition from our food. Understanding how much our mind controls us as human beings ought to give us great interest in learning skills to manage our mind and helping to teach children mind management. Dr. Caroline Leaf calls that mind management. And we can do this from the youngest age possible. I am really studying the developmental ages. I had a parent come in today. I had two parents come in, and they wanted to talk about their little boy that was 2.5, and he is kicking and screaming and hitting at daycare. And, at that developmental age, they're just pushing their limits. That's what they're supposed to do, is push their limits, right? They're trying to figure out what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. But if we attribute their behavior to they're just being rebellious, think how differently you're going to respond to that child's behavior than if you just understand, at this developmental age, they're just pushing their limits because that's what they're supposed to do. They're just trying to figure out what's acceptable. And as we kind of dove into this child's behavior, she had a new sibling. He had a new sibling in the house, an old 9-month-old. He'd been to new daycare, and he had joined a new gymnastics class. So there was a lot of new going on. So Caroline Leaf says, she's researched how the mind is managed. And that's what we're going to do as we read through a lot of her information. So research has shown there again I don't want this to bring guilt. I want this to bring education and motivation on why it's important for us to learn this. But research has shown that the unmanaged stress of an adult becomes the unmanaged stress of the child. But on the positive side, the managed stress and mind management of a parent can be a great impact on children and how they manage their mental stress and the messiness of life. Life can be messy. Life can be wonderful. We got to choose what we're going to focus on, right? Children need to learn, and this comes from Dr. Leaf's book, children need to learn we can find peace during the storms, and it begins with learning to direct our thoughts and feelings. I think that's so important. The other thing we need to think about as we talk about our thought life is who taught you how to think? I think that's a really provocative question. Who taught you how to think, right? Where do we learn to think? Where do our thoughts come from? Did someone teach you that was healthy? Did someone teach you that was wounded? Did we just learn our behavior from wounded people? So has anybody ever said to you that you can decide what you think on? I can't always control what comes into my mind, but I can decide, do I agree with that thought? Is that person really being ugly? Or can I choose to disagree with that? I might not just understand their behavior. Maybe they're not being negative. Maybe they said it in a way that sounded negative. So I can choose to agree or disagree with the thoughts that come into my mind. And with that, it changes my feelings. If I'd say, that person did that to get back at me, how am I going to feel? Pretty negative, right? And then how am I going to behave? I'm going to act on that. Whereas if I say, wow, I bet Tim just had a really hard day today. I'm going to give him grace. I'm going to feel differently. Wow, I'm so sorry you had a bad day. I'm going to act differently, right? I'm going to maybe go pat him on the back or high five him or engage with him instead of run away. So very important. So I want to wrap up. This is fun. Like I said, my podcast is going to be about tools and things you can use to help you in training your children how to think positively, how to manage their mind. And so there's some great books that I've received from a therapist, a childhood play therapist. And I love this. This is Tiger, Tiger, Is This True? And this is by Byron Katie and Hans Wilhelm. There's 4 questions to make you smile again. You're like, are you really going to read this? But I am. I'm going to read you this because I think it's amazing. Since the beginning of time, people have been trying to change the world so that they can be happy. Think about, why do we try to change everybody? So I can be happy. This hasn't ever worked because it approaches the problem backwards. What the work, which is their book, gives us is a way to change the projector, which is our mind, rather than the projected, which are other people. It's like when there's a piece of lint on the projector's lens, we think there's a flaw on the screen, what's out there. And we try to change this person and that person, whomever the flaw appears to be on next. But it's futile to try to change the projected images, those out there, right? Once we realize where the lint is, we can clear the lens itself. It's on me. This is the end of suffering and the beginning of a little joy in paradise. There's 4 questions this book is going to teach us to ask. Is it true? It's about the thought. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Who would you be without that thought? And how do you reframe it? How do you turn it around? Then find at least 3 specific, genuine examples of how the turnaround is true in your life. Let's see what happens to Tiger, Tiger. So this is a great book. It's for your children. So the illustrations are amazing. The pictures are very colorful. So it's, parent, you're going to learn about yourself as well as about the child, right? One morning, Tiger, Tiger got out of bed on the wrong side. Drat, he said. It's going to be one of those days. And he was right. At breakfast, he heard his parents arguing again. They paid no attention to him. It was like he wasn't even there. I might as well be a ghost, he thought. And at school, the same day, Tiger was picked last at games. It hurt his feelings. It was awful. After school, his best friend decided to play with Zebra. Tiger felt rotten as could be. Everything was terrible. Do you remember his first thought in the morning? It's a bad day. Our thoughts matter. Nobody cares. This is what he's saying to himself. Tiger says, nobody cares. Nobody likes me. Tiger felt tears, angry tears welling up in his eyes. Suddenly there was a ripple in the water. Oh, here comes a turtle. What's up? Turtle asked. Nothing, said Tiger. Well, if nothing can make you cry, tell me more about the nothing. It must be very powerful if it made you cry. It's just that nobody cares, Tiger sobbed. Nobody likes me. Nobody cares if I'm around or not. Life is so unfair. The turtle says. You say that nobody cares about you and nobody likes you? Is that true? Are you sure? Yes, Tiger. My parents don't even know I'm around. Nobody likes me at school. And now my best friend is playing with Zebra. That sounds pretty bad, Turtle said. But can you absolutely know it's true that there's nobody in the whole wide world who cares about you or likes you? Tiger thought about it and realized that he couldn't be absolutely sure. No, I can't, not really, he said. So it's not true that nobody cares about you or likes you? Right? Asked the turtle. How does it feel inside when you believe the thought that nobody cares and nobody likes you? I feel bad, lonely, rotten, said the tiger. It makes me really sad. That must be terrible, said the turtle. Isn't it amazing what a little thought can do to you? Now, how does it feel if you are not thinking that thought, that nobody cares and nobody likes you? Who would you be if you could never believe that thought again? Tiger's eyes brightened up. I would be happy. Tiger says. I would feel great. I would do anything. Nothing would bother me. Tiger paused for a moment. That's amazing, he said. So it's not my parents or my friends who bug me. It's just my thinking about them that makes me mad. Wow, that's pretty cool. You got it, said Turtle. It's your thinking. Now let's try something different. You think nobody cares, nobody likes you. Can you turn this thought around? I mean, can you find the opposite? Tiger thought for a moment. Like somebody cares and likes me? Yes, said Turtle. Could that be true? Can you think of 3 examples of how your parents have shown you that they do like you? Tiger didn't have to think very long. He knew his parents liked him. They never forget my birthday, he said. They take me on great vacations, and they give me the best hugs in the world. They don't just care about me. They really love me. Okay, how about your best friend at school who's playing with Zebra? Asked the turtle. Can you find 3 examples with him? Well, yes, said Tiger. He always saves a seat for me on the school bus. We're great game buddies, and he says he really likes to jam with me. What about at school? Turtle asked. Is there anybody who likes you and cares about you? I think my teacher likes me, said Tiger. She loves my drawings, and Rhino wants me to sit with him at school at lunch, and Elephant always tells me secrets. I think she likes me a lot. Now find a turnaround. For nobody cares and nobody likes me. Let's change that, Turtle said. Like, I care and I like everybody. That wouldn't be a bad idea, would it? Turtle said with a smile. And if it's not true for you now that you like everybody, how about I care and I like somebody? I'm sure you can think of a lot of folks you like. Yes, Tiger said. Then he thought for a moment and laughed. I can think another turnaround. You can? Yes. How about I care and I like myself? Wow, that's the best of all, Turtle said. How would you do that? I'll always find out if my bad thoughts are true or not, but I already know that they probably never are. Amazing how clever little tigers are these days, said Turtle. So it's good to ask ourselves, is this thought true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How can you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Who would you be without that thought? How can I turn that thought around? Have a great day. Great to be with you today.